The Warhammer 40,000 universe is shaped by ancient and devastating conflicts, none more significant than the war in heaven between the Necrons and the Old Ones. The Old Ones, a godlike species, were the architects of much of the galaxy's early development, while the Necrons, originally the Necronter, were mortal beings cursed with brief and painful lives under a dying star. This resentment led them to seek power at any cost, culminating in their tragic transformation into the immortal, soulless Necrons under the rule of the Tan. But what if the Necrons had emerged victorious, utterly annihilating the Old Ones instead of merely driving them into hiding? The galaxy would be profoundly altered, as the ripple effects of such an outcome would transform the trajectory of every race and event that followed. A total Necron victory would signify the end of the Old Ones' grand project to seed and nurture sentient life across the galaxy. The Old Ones' strength lay in their unparalleled mastery of the warp, which they used to create new species, many of whom were designed to be their allies or proxies in war. The Eldar, Orcs, then known as the Krork, and other proto-races arose during this era, engineered to counter the Necron threat. However, had the Necrons eradicated the Old Ones before these creations could mature fully, the galaxy's biological diversity would have been stunted. The Eldar might never have achieved their later prominence, and the Orcs would have remained a crude, underdeveloped species. The galaxy would be left a graveyard of half-formed potential, overseen by the cold and mechanical Necrons. The absence of the Old Ones would have immediate consequences for the warp itself. The Old Ones were skilled manipulators of this immaterial dimension, and their actions inadvertently gave rise to its darker aspects. Without the Old Ones to catalyze the psychic awakening of their creations, the warp would remain a quieter, less chaotic realm. The Necrons, as being severed from the warp, would see this as a significant victory. No Chaos Gods would emerge, for there would be no burgeoning psychic activity from sentient species to feed them. The absence of Slaanesh, Khorne, Nurgle, and Tsench would mean the galaxy would be spared the unending torment and corruption wrought by their existence. While this might seem like a blessing, it would also rob the galaxy of its capacity for spiritual connection, creativity, and other intangible qualities tied to the warp. Had the Necrons won decisively, their dominion over the galaxy would be characterized by cold logic and total order. Their ultimate goal, stability, would result in a galaxy stripped of chaos, individuality, and biological life. The Necrons view organic beings as fleeting and insignificant, a perspective shaped by their hatred of their own former mortality. After the war, they would likely have embarked on a systematic campaign to purge all remaining organic species, seeing them as relics of a chaotic, unnecessary past. The vast tomb worlds, the heart of Necron power, would serve as both fortresses and prisons for their soulless legions, while entire planets would be scoured of life. However, the Necrons' victory would not come without its challenges. Their alliance with the Tan, the star-eating gods who had granted them immortality, was already fraught with tension. The Tan, though instrumental in their war against the Old Ones, had their own designs. A galaxy free of the Old Ones would leave the Tan unchallenged, and their insatiable hunger for energy would eventually pit them against the Necrons themselves. The inevitable betrayal would see the Necrons turn on their former gods, as they eventually did in the established timeline. But in this scenario, their war with the Tan might play out with even greater intensity, as the Necrons would now be the uncontested rulers of the material universe. The resulting destruction could shatter entire sectors of the galaxy, further diminishing any possibility of a resurgence of organic life. Another crucial aspect of the Necron victory would be their impact on the galaxy's future technological and cultural development. The Necrons are masters of technology far beyond the comprehension of most other races. They possess weapons capable of unmaking reality, starships that bend the laws of physics, and devices that can manipulate time itself. With no rival capable of challenging them, the Necrons would impose their vision of a perfectly ordered galaxy. This would stifle innovation, as all technology would serve the singular purpose of maintaining their dominion. The galaxy would become a lifeless, eternal monument to their supremacy, a cold and unchanging machine. For the few organic beings who might somehow survive in such a galaxy, existence would be bleak. Resistance against the Necrons would be all but impossible, given their overwhelming power and immortality. Any species daring to oppose them would be eradicated without hesitation. Small pockets of life might endure in hidden corners of the galaxy, but these would remain perpetually on the brink of extinction, hunted by the Necrons' tireless armies. Over time, even these remnants would likely fade, leaving the Necrons as the sole rulers of a galaxy devoid of life. The psychological toll on the Necrons themselves would also be significant. Stripped of their souls and reduced to mechanical bodies, they are beings defined by a profound inner emptiness. Their victory over the Old Ones might satisfy their hatred and desire for revenge, but it would not bring them fulfillment. The Necrons' immortality is a curse as much as it is a blessing, condemning them to an eternity of monotony. Without purpose or opposition, their civilization might stagnate, as the endless years stretch before them with no challenges left to overcome. Some Necron lords might descend into madness, while others might seek to undo their own transformation, longing to reclaim the mortality they so desperately rejected. The fate of the galaxy under Necron rule would ultimately depend on the actions of the Silent King Zarek. In the established timeline, Zarek led the Necrons into stasis to await a time when they could reclaim their place in the galaxy. If the Necrons had achieved total victory, Zarek's role might shift to one of maintaining their empire or finding a way to address their soulless existence. Perhaps he would turn his attention to undoing the damage done by the Tan, or even to restoring some semblance of organic life to the galaxy, not out of compassion, but as a way to give the Necrons something to rule over. Alternatively, Zarek's isolation and despair might drive him to abandon his people altogether, leaving the Necron Empire rudderless and vulnerable to eventual decay. In this grim scenario, the galaxy's history would be fundamentally altered. Without the Old Ones, the myriad races of the galaxy would never rise to prominence, and the vibrant, chaotic tapestry of the 40K universe would be replaced with a sterile, lifeless expanse ruled by the cold logic of the Necrons. While this might seem like a form of peace, it would be a hollow one, devoid of hope, creativity, or meaning. The Necrons' victory would be a Pyrrhic one, achieving their revenge but at the cost of extinguishing the very diversity and vitality that make the galaxy worth fighting for. As the galaxy fell under the total dominion of the Necrons, its transformation into a mechanical empire of cold efficiency would proceed with merciless inevitability. The remaining traces of organic life, already battered by the aftermath of the war in heaven, would be systematically eradicated or subjugated. Planets teeming with life would be harvested to fuel the Necron war machines or stripped bare to create yet more tomb worlds, sterile monuments to the Necrons' eternal existence. For the galaxy's nascent civilizations, the loss of the Old Ones would be catastrophic, leaving them without guidance or protection from the unrelenting onslaught of their metallic overlords. One of the most significant consequences of the Necrons' victory would be the suppression of psychic evolution across the galaxy. The Old Ones' influence was crucial in fostering the development of psychic species like the Eldar, whose connection to the warp enabled their advanced culture and great power. In a galaxy where the Necrons had eradicated the Old Ones before these species could fully mature, psychic potential would remain underdeveloped or non-existent. This would fundamentally alter the fabric of reality, as the psychic energy that fuels the warp would be diminished without widespread sentient minds to generate it. The relative quieting of the warp would have profound implications for the universe. Without the psychic turmoil caused by sentient beings, the Chaos Gods would never coalesce into existence. Khorne, Slaanesh, Sench, and Nurgle, entities born from the psychic echoes of mortal emotion, would never emerge to wreak havoc on reality. While this might seem like a positive outcome, the absence of chaos would also remove many of the dynamic elements that define the galaxy. The great struggles between order and disorder, creation and destruction, would be replaced by a grim monotony. The galaxy would no longer be a place of possibility, but a stagnant, sterile realm controlled by the Necrons. Despite their unparalleled technological prowess, the Necrons' victory would not bring harmony or fulfillment to their existence. The transformation from the Necronter into the Necrons was an act of desperation, driven by the mortal fear of death and the unbearable suffering of their short, disease-ridden lives. This transformation stripped them of their souls, leaving them as hollow, mechanical shells. Their consciousnesses persisted, but devoid of the spiritual essence that once defined their individuality. For the Necrons, their immortality is not a gift but a curse, trapping them in a state of unending existence without purpose or joy. The Necrons' internal divisions would persist even after their total victory over the Old Ones. Necron society is highly stratified, with the Silent King and the noble pharaohs at the top, followed by the lords and lesser dynasties, and finally the countless legions of mindless warriors. The loss of their organic selves has not eliminated their ambition or capacity for rivalry, and conflicts between Necron dynasties would likely continue to simmer, even in the absence of external threats. These internecine struggles might escalate over time, as the Necron overlords seek to consolidate their power or assert their dominance over their peers. Moreover, the Necrons' relationship with the Tan, their former gods and creators, would remain a source of tension. The Tan, entities of pure energy who fed on the life force of stars, were instrumental in the Necrons' war against the Old Ones, but they were never truly allies. The Tan exploited the Necronters' desperation, bending them to their will and using them as tools for their own ends. Even after the Necrons rebelled and shattered the Tan into shards, these fragments remained potent threats, capable of turning against their former servants. In a galaxy where the Necrons had eliminated all other sources of opposition, the Tan shards might become the primary focus of Necron activity, as the Silent King and his peers seek to contain or destroy these treacherous beings once and for all. The psychological toll of their victory would weigh heavily on the Necrons, particularly their leaders. For millennia, their hatred of the Old Ones and their creations drove their actions, providing a unifying purpose amidst the existential despair of their existence. With the Old Ones vanquished, that purpose would vanish, leaving the Necrons adrift in a galaxy they had utterly dominated. Some Necron lords might attempt to fill this void by embarking on grand projects, such as reshaping the galaxy to mirror their own rigid ideals of order and perfection. Others might descend into madness, their minds unraveling under the strain of eternity and the crushing emptiness of their triumph. A few Necron leaders, perhaps even the Silent King himself, might come to regret the decisions that led to their transformation. Stripped of their mortality and their ability to truly experience life, these Necrons might turn their efforts toward undoing their curse, seeking a way to regain their lost souls or create new forms of existence. Such endeavors would be fraught with peril, as the Necrons' technology, while advanced beyond measure, might not be capable of restoring what was lost. The irony of their plight would be inescapable. Having sacrificed everything to achieve immortality and revenge, they would find themselves yearning for the very mortality they once despised. For the galaxy at large, the Necrons' dominance would mean the suppression of diversity, creativity, and evolution. The rise of new civilizations, the exploration of the stars, and the endless potential for discovery and growth would be quashed under the Necrons' iron grip. The galaxy would become a mausoleum, a place of unchanging order where the spark of life had been extinguished. The few surviving organic beings, if any, would exist only as remnants, hiding in the shadows and clinging to the faint hope of a better future. Over time, even these remnants would likely disappear, leaving the Necrons as the sole inheritors of the galaxy. Yet, even in the face of such despair, the possibility of resistance might endure. The galaxy is vast, and the Necrons, for all their power, are not omniscient. Small enclaves of life might endure in the uncharted regions of space, quietly growing and adapting until they are strong enough to challenge the Necrons. Over millennia, these hidden civilizations might develop new technologies, philosophies, or even forms of existence that could rival the Necrons' supremacy. The struggle between life and death, change and stasis, might continue in subtle and unexpected ways, as the indomitable spirit of life seeks to reclaim the galaxy from its mechanical overlords.